Well, hey guys, this is Patrick Sukup with Sukup Real Estate Services here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I've decided to go ahead and do an investor series interview type. And my first guest is going to be Tim Jordan. Tim and I really got to know each other probably about 6 months ago. We've known each other for many years, but 6 months ago, we really started to build a relationship. I understood kind of what type of high character individual he was, what everything he's got going on. He's the owner of Palmer Flowers, Sunglo, window films, and other businesses. He's just an entrepreneur all around, and then ultimately also a real estate investor and family man. And Tim's been investing in real estate for many years, from single families to short-term rentals, mostly here in northern Colorado. I'm excited for you guys to hear his story and why and how he got involved with it. And hopefully I can learn something along the way as well. So Tim, appreciate you joining me tonight.
Heck yeah, man. I'm excited to talk about it and to hear some input and some feedback from you also, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I love to hear kind of your journey of how you got started and involved with probably entrepreneurship first, but then parlaying that into real estate. So if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of your journey, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, a big piece of my story is my wife is my partner, Danielle, or Dee as I call her. She's a tax accountant and a CPA, and we've done everything together. We moved out here when we were 18, and we bought our first house when we were 19, so that would be in 2009. No real idea what we were doing, right? We were just two kids, and we knew that, there's this idea that we kind of think of cliche is we know that we knew it's better to pay a mortgage than it was to rent. So bought the first one with the idea that we would never be real estate investors and that we were going to be entrepreneurs. So we started buying up businesses. We bought a window tinting company, which we own today and has had good success across Colorado. Fell in love with entrepreneurship and started buying flower shops and a few other small businesses that we still own. A few years back, Sterling Palmer approached us about a leveraged buyout, a merger, pulling our brand or our flower shops into Palmer Flowers, taking our employee base to about 100, 125 people, depending on the day. That really set the tone for a lot of growth on our entrepreneurial side of our business, which has been fun. We loved it. Now, that was our focus when we were 20, 21. That's what we wanted to do, man. We and still do. Love that part of it. But, talking about real estate, in that period of our life, we had I'm talking end of 2009, 2010, 11. So we had just watched so many people that we respect struggle so much under multiple properties, too high LTVs, too many cash out refis, all those things. So we were a bit gun shy when it came to real estate investing. So we owned a house at a young age. That was awesome. A couple years later, really how our real estate investing journey got started was on our second purchase. So at that time, 2 years of rental history to count rental income was a big deal. I'm not sure where it's at now. I know there's been changes on it, but it was a big deal. Right? Yeah. So we own this house. We really want to have roommates. We had no roommates. We had no rental history whatsoever. So trying to buy a second house at 20 years old, we had to qualify for both. That was a problem. That was a hard thing to do. So we found this house. I found it on Craigslist. Our agent astutely realized that they owed $20,000 against the property, and it was fairly priced. It had been on the market a long time, poorly marketed. We made a crazy offer, like 40, 50 grand less, accepted with no counter, right? Just dream situation. Then it came to trying to get the finance. So I was sitting in my car calling lenders.
I love it.
And I called 12 lenders, told them the situation. Hey, we had the money, put 20% down, but we didn't want to tap all of our cash, especially when we were getting done shy.
Especially at that time.
Yeah, man. So the 12th lender I called, it was Affiliated Financial. Dude by the name of Justin Crowley, young Justin Crowley, picked up the phone.
No way.
And the last 11 people had told me to buzz off. Very nicely told me to buzz off. And Justin took the opposite approach. He's like, hey, man, I think there's a way to get this done. We got some creative solutions. You come in the office tomorrow, we'll figure it out. Went to the office. He was awesome. He closed that deal in 20 days. I mean, when we were 20 years old, he just crushed it. And at that moment, when we closed that deal, I realized that to me, to that point, real estate was kind of a 1 + 1 = 2. Mm-hmm. And I realized that 1 + 1 could equal 3, 4, or 5, depending on how much energy and just innovation I put to the deal. Between finding it on Craigslist and getting the right owner involved and doing all those kinds of things. Obviously, looking back, that was a stupid concept, right? Real estate is the ultimate 1 + 1 = whatever you want it to equal. But it took that experience to figure that out. So we kept rolling, mostly single family stuff. We ended up with 3 single family homes, plus our primary, plus owner-occ, a freestanding building in Loveland that our flower shop was in. And we were kind of happy with that situation. Then our agent at the time, who's an investor, said, hey man, have you thought about not just owning property, but owning the right property? And what property do you want to own in 5 to 10 years? And are you happy with Warren Farm, KD homes from the early 2000s, or should we max out the value of that property today and roll it into a couple old town duplexes and triplexes? And so we started that process, which I tremendously believe in, and constantly auditing my portfolio. Do I have the property I want to own? So that set us off on a whole new journey. Okay, well, let's sell a few of these crummy properties that we bought when we were 19, 20, 21 years old, and let's end up with a $4,500 a month duplex in Old Town, or a nice house in Willow Springs is one of the other properties we own right now.
Nice.
Those kinds of things. So we've done that twice now, just kind of rolling out of stuff we don't want. And usually we've ended up rolling one property into 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
now were those properties that you rolled, were they all previous owner-occs, or were they all previous just purely investment properties?
Half and half. So we started just with, when we were young, we would move every 2 years and did the 5% down rental deal and had some success with it, honestly.
Sure.
And then obviously now as we've grown a little bit, we've rolled through some investment properties as well. So we own a pretty diverse portfolio. Our life is diversity. Like that's diversification is what we do. So we have 2 owner-occupied commercial properties, 2 Old Town multifamily properties, a single family nice property in Willow Springs, and a Old Town short-term rental.
Or Old Town short-term rental. Mm-hmm. I've been meaning to ask you, how's that been going?
Yeah, we freaked out, right? Because we bought it last September.
Yeah.
Rehabbed it. We had like a 2-month rehab on it because it was like a 3, 1.5. Mm-hmm. And there was no bathroom in the basement area. And we ran into all kinds of problems. The drain was actually 2 foot above. Pitch above the slab. Right. So we ended up with pump stations and trenching up almost the whole basement, which was fine. Our team was good at it, but it took a month, 2 months longer. So anyway, we're in the slow season. We got the short-term rental. We got it all outfitted, and we're doing fine, getting good reviews. That's all good. And then busy season hits, and we're getting all booked up, and then COVID. So we're like, we've just been pouring money at this thing.
Right.
Now every single one of our reservations cancels. So we put a medium-term tenant in.
Okay.
We put a 4-month tenant in.
Perfect.
It was beautiful. We did it on a rental agreement as opposed to a lease to protect ourselves on that side. We walked the property on a month-to-month basis. They took great care of it. And we rolled back out of that July end of July, and we've been 65 to 70% occupied since. So I'm going to call that a win.
That's a huge win.
Right, we feel good about it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, even just listening to kind of your story, one of the things that I think is pretty important and vital to a real estate investor is being able to pivot and be okay with that and understand how liquid this market can be and how understanding you have to be to changes of circumstances. 3 years ago, I had 3 short-term rentals that I was renting, and Fort Collins put in kind of their ordinance, what can and can't be a short-term rental and what area. And, I had some tough decisions to make. And looking back on it, I wish I would have at least got the licensing for it just to have the option. But, I always felt like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze at that time. But, it's pretty short-sighted, honestly. I wish I would have had the foresight to understand the opportunity for future and supply demand basics, short-term rentals. But I think being able to pivot like you were able to, and with your houses into Old Town multifamily and the short-term rental, is pretty vital for a real estate investor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what real estate investing is about. Is you can pivot and move anytime you want to achieve the next goal or a different goal, or to roll what met yesterday's goal into something new that even better meets yesterday's goal, frankly. And I mean, it's this, Pat, it's no greater example of that than getting into rehabs. When you start doing not only just fix and flips, but rehabbing your own long-term stuff.
Sure.
I mean, there's stuff that comes up all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think the difference between a successful real estate investor and maybe one who struggles a little bit is they get scared of what could happen.
Yeah.
And I think most successful real estate investors realize anything could happen. And there's almost always an answer, right? You can, you decide not to pull that short-term rental certification. Great, you still own it, right? You can roll it into something different, or if the cash flows right, put it into a long-term rental or whatever you want. Rehab it, max out the value of the neighborhood. I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah,
that you can use to meet your own goals.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we kind of talked about before really gotten rolling in the actual recording of this was the team that you surround yourself with in regards to being able to leverage their knowledge and experience. Because let's say you do come across, like you said, the drain being 2 feet higher than the slab, and being able to rely on your GC and asking them what can we do? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's not fun, but we've seen this before. Not a big deal. Here's what you're gonna do, and here's what it's gonna take. Whereas if you maybe are really green and you'd either freak out, or I can tell you the biggest freak out I've had in the last many years was this Old Town house that I bought. Which Old Town is its own animal. You have different unique houses and foundation and structure, build, all these different crazy things, but I literally had a house that the permit, the building department said, you are going to have to lift your house 2 feet. And I was like, I literally, excuse my language, but I said, well, that's not fucking going to happen. I just told them, I was like, we're going to have to figure something else out. And it wasn't because of necessarily that I believed in myself. It was just that I knew that I had a team behind me that we can come up with a creative solution to get them what they want, which was essentially the floodplain was a little bit too high and they were concerned about the HVAC unit. So we literally just put the HVAC unit 1.5 feet higher than what it would have been. And they were okay with that.
Yeah, one thing I think we learned very quickly and succeed is that the first answer isn't always the answer, right? If we continue asking questions about it, a lot of times you can come to a more reasonable answer. I agree with that. Old Town is its own animal. I just got done rehabbing a basement unit on one of our triplexes on Edwards. There's so many surprises. Now, I'm a big proponent of Old Town. In fact, if I'm rolling property, I'm almost always trying to roll it to Old Town. I think regardless of the structure, the dirt is possibly the best investment in Colorado, Old Town Fort Collins. So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Just a real quick touch on my team, man. I think one of the best things that we've done is when we found a good member of our team that brought something that we were valued, we just stuck with him. I mean, even if the GC is a month or 2 months behind, I mean, really, say I lose 2 months of rent, $3,000-$4,000, whatever, to have that GC stay in my back pocket by him knowing, no, I'll wait for you. You pick your date, I'll wait for you. I'm good. Like that has bought me so much equity over the years. And that's just one example of whatever it is, but I think that's a really important part of this, is finding that team and then sticking with that team on top of that.
Loyal. I agree. Mm-hmm. What are you doing any investments today, or what type of investments are you looking for type in real estate these days, or even entrepreneurship, business opportunities? I know we kind of touched on it a few months back.
On the real estate side, we're a little more passive than your typical real estate investor, just because we have entrepreneur deals going on all the time.
Yeah.
As well. So our real estate investing seems to come in fits and starts. And we are rolling out of a pretty heavy period where we did 2 sales, 4 acquisitions, 3 rehabs, and just all kind of happened, of 18 months of work. And I'm super happy about it. I love it. I had so much freaking fun doing it. I mean, that's the other part of real estate investing. I love that element of, okay, what can I turn 1 + 1 into? 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, I love that challenge of it. But it also puts us in a little bit more of a passive time frame for our own deals. What we are looking for right now is owner-occ commercial. We own 7 businesses, 2 of which are in, stuff owned by us, just because commercial's a little bit bigger britches. We started with basically no britches. So kind of, getting bigger britches as we go. So, but owner-occ financing is so good right now on the commercial side of things. I think we can jump on the right owner-occupied situation. And then on the residential side, really just stuff that would fit our portfolio. For example, that short-term rental I was referencing is basically on the corner of Riverside and Mulberry.
Oh yeah.
There is another identical property that we share our parking lot with.
Ooh.
That we own all the parking lots.
Huge.
And half of a garage with. Yeah, so it's in this little bump out on the short-term map, where it's in an area where there's not much short-term rental, but there's 3 or 4 properties in a row right there that fit well. So we could do like a little complex. It's a duplex. Ours is a single family, so we could do, a 3-unit complex there. Plus I forget what the zoning is, but it's commercial zoning. The long-term development of it is and prospects of it are pretty strong as well. So we're looking for those kinds of things, duplexes or triplexes that are near our stuff in Old Town, that kind of thing. Yeah. On the entrepreneurial side, we're always looking to expand the flower shops. We own 65% market share in Northern Colorado for retail floral.
Awesome.
If we can continue buying market share, we will. It's hard for us to organically grow market share at a 65% market share rate.
Sure.
And then we have some big opportunities. Probably our closest investment to happening at this point is adding a Boulder and South Denver window tint facility. So
cool.
We're pushing that direction.
Yeah, I remember you kind of talking about that. So that's exciting. And I think on the commercial side, I think there's going to be, at least that we can visibly see, I think right now, I think residential will have some opportunity in the future, possibly, but we can see the opportunity on the commercial side right now.
What asset classes? What type?
I think anything potentially big box retail, restaurant, strip mall area could see some aging boomers that are wanting to get out, and
Sure.
this is their effort moment. I could still get a fair penny for my property, but I don't know what the future holds, and I'm not willing to sit this or ride this out. I know a fair amount of investors that have such little debt or even zero debt, but own some commercial, and there's sitting dead on a spot, and we just don't know. At least the conversations that I'm having of when these are going to get filled, like 6 months, 12 months,
Right.
So
It's
I think
such a guess right now.
Yeah, and I think that there's especially on the owner-occupied side of commercial, having a use for a building, that you need it, and then either have a chance to, offset some of your overhead with income from, other property on that strip, or just having a small condo that you buy in a strip area that you can jump in and have the use for, and know what you're going to be, basically bringing in as revenue and
Sure.
fix your overhead.
What are you seeing on investment commercial real estate, specifically on the lending side? Is there lending going on the investment commercial real estate? I've heard mixed things.
Yeah, I think they've loosened up a bit, but I would say underwriting is going to be more. It's going to be under more scrutiny than it has. They're going to be looking at the asset and the borrower more so than probably they have in the past. Whereas it used to be pretty much loose pocket, purse string, so to speak, and now it's going to just be a little bit more with a magnifying glass. But I don't know who do you bank through generally?
Bank of Colorado.
Yeah, I think I remember talking to you about that. Do you go with Sue?
Chris Burns.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's a core member of our team. When we were buying the first,
That's right.
our first business, Chris, same kind of sort of Justin. No. Sat down in Chris's office back when he was a young pup and said, "Yep, we believe in you," and we've stuck with him ever since. He's the man.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, what are you and Dee's kind of like long-term goals? I know you guys are really pretty and have a strong intent of what you guys do in your guys' lives, and with the accounting backgrounds, being in business, having to plan budget. So I'm sure you guys have thought about it or talked about it. So what are some of your kind of long-term goals, aspirations, where you want to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, just from a personal level, we want to find it. We want to continue to grow balance in our family life, our community, having involvement in our community, and having involvement in strong organizations, whether that's ones we own or volunteer for or what have you. So finding a balance there is a big part of our goal. We like to travel. We like to see all the places and all the things and adventure and eat the best food and drink the best wine. So that's a part of that as well. That's kind of how we fill our personal buckets. So having our work life is to try and meet those goals. And we love what we do. Don't get me wrong. That feels a little bit like I'm de-emphasizing the enjoyment that we have in running businesses and investing in real estate, because there is legitimate, excited to do that every single day.
Yeah.
But that's what we're feeding, man. And so from that perspective, we see we're probably a bit different than most of your real estate investors. We see real estate as retirement, purely. Mm-hmm. So we have, for a long time, been working towards a number of gross rents, basically. Mm-hmm. So we see that 15 to 20,000 in gross rents on the real estate side as giving us a good baseline for that lifestyle that we want to live. Obviously, that doesn't feed probably our full lifestyle, especially when you start talking about the expenses associated with real estate in Northern Colorado. Sure. Those gross rents get eaten away pretty quickly, but our other holdings help us out with that a lot. So we're just building to feed that lifestyle. But I will tell you, we've gotten to a point of comfort and financially and with our family, that we are much more measured in our next steps investment wise. I don't know if we would buy real estate at less than 40% debt at this point.
Yeah.
I just, there's some risk. Obviously, not a ton in Northern Colorado, but there's some risk with adding debt to any portfolio. So, that's kind of where we're at, is we want to keep growing and keep developing, but it can't risk that goal of finding that balance in our personal lives.
That's awesome. So, I like the idea of balance. I'm not there yet. And I know Janae is talking to me about even just tonight, it's 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and she's asking why I'm doing this. And, it's because I enjoy it. And, but it's also building personal brands and building for, the business, education, building a network. And I was like, this is what, for me, by the time we're 40, will hopefully all this hard work will, and I'm not saying that we have tons of fun as our family, but definitely working quite a bit right now and pushing the pedal to the metal. So I'm envious that you've got some good balance going on in your life.
Yeah. At some point in the last 5 years, Dee and I worked on what really filled our buckets individually, and then what filled our buckets as a family. And this is just what works for us. I think it's different for everyone, but I worked 80 hours a week from 18 until my daughter was born.
Yeah.
And so there's some of that where she was cool with that and she supported me through that. Now it's kind of like, what? You have, a 6-year-old, and you need to be there and present and help with homeschooling and do all the things. And it seems we found it as a reasonable trade-off in our personal life and our marriage of, hey, we worked crazy hard and we have built this momentum. We need to continue working hard enough to maintain and this momentum, especially not at the expense of our goals. But we also need to realize that there are some other things. We can't keep plugging away at 80 hours a week, or else there's nothing to enjoy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're spot on. And last thing I think a lot of people who get involved with real estate investing and or entrepreneurship, running their own company, one, I think after at least getting involved with it, you understand how much work there really is, but also the idea, and I think we're willing to put in that work and time for the idea that we don't want to retire when we're 65. And I don't necessarily think I'm ever going to necessarily retire. I'm going to always do deals. I love it. I'm just like you. I think it's fun. It's creative. It expands me, but I don't want to have to be bound by a paycheck or having to make money and doing it on my own time. But hopefully being able to go and travel like like you're talking about, and spend time with family and, important times of our daughters and sons' lives, and, grow as a family together and not be an 8 to 5 clock in, clock out.
Heck yeah. Is there to me, there's not a better reason to do it, right? We take tremendous risks in this business and this type of work. We have days where they have to be long. They have to be stressful. They have to be, met with seemingly insolvable problems. And, there's got to be a reason to do it. What better reason than being able to have, financial independence or just independence, even if you will, if you remove some of the financial part of it, just being independent, being able to make your own decisions. Absolutely. There's no better reason to do it,
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, man. Well, honestly, so the last kind of couple things I want to do, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I know family is important to you, but is end with, what book are you reading right now that's kind of resonating the most? And what's the current podcast? I think we all listen to lots of different podcasts. But what's the current podcast that you find yourself push and play on most?
Sure. Yeah. Book wise, I've been dumping back through a book called Measure What Matters. And I think I mentioned it to you, but I'm actually implementing the procedures within my organization. So I've been really just chewing at. It's an organizational goal setting book. So it's how do you set goals transparently across a team to not just set goals, not just for the sake of setting goals, but to align everyone's goals with the organizational vision and mission statements and help pull all of your people quicker, faster, at a more intentional rate. So we had a meeting today with our partners at the Flower Shop who have instituted this procedure. It's pretty awesome. The other cool thing about this book, I may or may not have said this yet at a different time, Pat, but so this concept came out of Microsoft in the 70s and 80s when Microsoft and Motorola and IBM were doing this crazy tech battle, right? We think of Microsoft as this giant. Well, they were kind of medium sized at that point. They were fighting this huge Motorola and these other companies. And this individual procedure really is attributed to a lot of their success, so much so that most of the Microsoft execs have gone on to consult in almost all of the tech companies that implementing this. It's OKRs, objectives and key results is the primary concept of this book. But it alternates between these crazy historical stories of all these companies that
Oh, cool.
a different part of the procedure, a different part of how to implement it. So I'm not a business book to read a business book kind of guy. There's got to be something more interesting in it for me. And this one does an awesome job.
That's awesome.
On the podcast side, man, this is probably a little chalk, but I'm a big Bigger Pockets guy. And I really like Bigger Pockets. I think fits my style of investing in that they have so many different concepts and approaches and different ways that people run their real estate business. I learned about financing concepts. I learned about asset classes. I learned about different ways to run my organizations that aren't even real estate based, and how these people create processes within the real estate business. So, like I said, that's a little cliche, but I really place a lot of value on what Brandon Turner does.
Well, and I think honestly, it's one of the biggest social media platforms for real estate investors to connect. And
for sure,
with that, they're able to leverage bringing on some of the highest quality investors. Pretty much across the world, and bring their knowledge. And how cool is that we're able to pop in our headphones while we're at the gym or driving our car and get some mentorship, if you will, from some of the most successful people in the world, where 20 years ago, that ain't happening unless you have maybe a CD or a book on tape, not a book on CD, but a book on tape. And so I think Bigger Pockets has done a phenomenal job and has really been like a spearhead for bringing high quality real estate investing and podcasts and information to the general masses.
I mentioned this to you earlier, I think before we really got rolling, but I surround myself with investors. My real estate agent is an investor. My mortgage brokers are all investors. My GC is an investor. That's just, to me, that makes sense. And it's no better example than Brandon Turner and those guys. They're doing huge deals all across the country.
Right.
That's probably a good place to get information about doing it. So.
No, man, I agree with you. And I was just actually talking with Samson earlier, and I'm listening to two podcasts right now, like GSD Mode and Bigger Pockets. Those are kind of my two go-tos as well. And it's just, now the 2 hours every now and again gets a little much sometimes for the Bigger Pockets, but you can break it up into segments and, listen to it, and it's just good stuff, man.
How about, I'm curious to hear a book you're reading right now, man. I know that's not in this, but I'd love to hear what you got going on.
Yeah. So, basically I'm kind of reading a few at this time. Let's see here. The couple that are, the first one that I opened up is Pitch Anything. It's kind of a sales. And then the one that I kind of just pick up every now and again, that's just kind of a good short read, is Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss.
How do you like that?
It's good. It's just kind of he basically did what he did was Tim Ferriss, he tried to leverage his network and sent the same 10 questions to his entire database and composed all those into a book. And so essentially it's, the same 10 questions asked to tons and tons of different people that are successful in all their own industries. So their answers and reasons for doing what they do and how they do it, all different. It's not a book that you have to read cover to cover. It's just something that you kind of pick up to get a tidbit from, I can't think of one right now, but just some successful person, some successful actor, and why or how he or she did what they did and how they did it. So those are kind of the two that I'm kind of alternating back and forth right now. But I agree with you. I'm, not necessarily, I actually alternate. I alternate a business book to a personal read. And right now there's I call it a half share. It's a fantasy book that's, in the stars and spaceships, and just kind of takes my mind off things. So.
Yeah, we have to have that decompression, right? We're in a kind of a period right now where we're expected to read motivational, focused, organizational business books, but there is that solace or that calmness of just decompressing into something that you enjoy. So I know for me, I have to have those times to stay high performing. So yeah, I think that's awesome, man. That's a good way to do it, to alternate.
Yeah, it helps me. So, well, buddy, I appreciate your time. And actually, to be honest with you, hearing as in depth and of your story as I've never really heard before. So I apologize that I haven't asked you previously about it, but I appreciate you willing to share it with me, and for those that watch, because I think it's going to help.
And I appreciate the opportunity to share it. It's we're in such an awesome community of investors. I think, if you look back the last 15 years of Northern Colorado real estate and entrepreneurial investors, the Rich Chernos and Larry Kindles and Ed Stoners and all those guys that have led, our generation and of investors, we're in this amazing community. I think our generation is going to have to take that up at some point, and it's going to look different, right? And I think this is a really, highly likely way, these kind of conversations and these kind of podcasts that are going to serve that purpose.
Yeah, I hope so. And we have a lot of molding to do of how Fort Collins and Northern Colorado is going to look.
For sure.
So, the growth is going to be massive, and need some leaders and people in charge and leverage each other.
No better place in the world to be buying real estate, buddy.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time, buddy. You have a good rest of your night.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thanks for it.
All right.
Yeah, bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.